From CBS News, murders plummeted more than 20% in U.S. last year. The largest drop on record, study shows. I hear that it's the, actually it says right here. Murders plummeted more than 20% in 2025 from the year before, the single largest one-year drop on record, and it might be the lowest murder rate in the U.S. since 1900, a study released Thursday by the Council on Criminal Justice found. The annual crime trends report analyzed data from 40 large cities across the United States for 13 different crime types, including murder, carjacking, theft, and drug offenses. Alongside homicide, which dropped 21% from 2024, carjackings have declined 61% since 2023, while shoplifting is down 10% since 2024. In general, the overall crime rate declined, with violent crimes at or below levels seen in 2019. The analysis found drug offenses were the only category that rose during this period, while sexual assault remained even. This is actually evidence that deporting people is probably a good thing. If you are going to if you're going to close the border, right, and stop people coming in, and that's going to have a 20% drop in murder, never open the border again. Never. Like, I mean, obviously I'm being a little hyperbolic there, but like deporting criminals works. Deporting criminals not just gets criminals out, but it makes criminals less likely to commit crime because they're going to get effing deported.
Yeah, exactly. It makes the illegal immigrants less likely to commit violent crimes because they're more likely to get tossed. I don't know why I just repeated what you said. That's true.
I think that this is, I don't think any person could think that this is a bad thing. Like, we all want the murder rate to be lower, but not to, like, don't call me black-pilled, but when I look at what they're saying there, they said from 40 large cities. So which 40 large cities? That's one thing. The second thing is that when Biden was the president, one of the things that Trump said is that and a lot of Republicans said is that the crime statistics are not real because they're not reporting to the FBI in these certain areas. So the crime statistics are off the charts. So it's like, are the crime statistics that they're giving us now to prove that they're low, are those correct? Or are they being compared to the ones that were the real statistics that we didn't have because they weren't reporting it? So what even is anything? And it says 40 cities. Which 40 cities have it? Did any other cities go up? So as much as I want and like to celebrate this and would love to believe that it's true, these little small details confuse me, where it's like, if we had the worst economy a year ago and now we have the best economy in the world, if we had the highest crime rate ever and now we have the best, it's like, where are we, what are you trying to sell me, CBS News? Like, what are you trying to convince me of?
Yeah, I'm with Bobby. Like, I don't think if you're in the Trump administration or if you're a Trump supporter, we should just be like jumping for joy over this. Because to your point, I mean, these cities are starting to phone it in probably maliciously on their crime data because they are like, we can go to these cities. Things are not improving. Like, we're not idiots. Philadelphia's not improving. New York City, not improving. Los Angeles, not improving. Even Omaha, I've never been, but Raleigh, not improving. Mm-hmm. So it's like, there's just no way that Los Angeles saw a 39% drop in homicides. Right. That's absurd. So, and then you dig into it, like you're seeing where they play it fast and loose with like the racial classifications, where it'll be like an obvious like Guatemalan, and they're like, it's a white guy. You're
well, like, okay, so these cities, right? So New York, Philadelphia, Omaha, Nebraska, Raleigh, North Carolina. These are Democrat-run cities, right? So what would be the benefit for them to give crime statistics that are lower?
They don't want the National Guard coming in. That's the whole reason.
Okay.
Like
to reelect more Democrats, for example.
Yeah, the Trump administration has made it very clear that if you can't clean up your mess, then we're sending in the National Guard. We're going to put pressure on you. We're going to even touch your federal funding. Yeah. So all that really did, it was great. I'm 100% supportive of the National Guard coming in, but this is why we can't trust the crime data now, because they are now directly incentivized to muddy the data. Like, and people were saying, for the record, people were saying, you can go on Twitter, people were saying this when the first crackdown happened in Washington, D.C. They said, these police departments are going to start fudging the numbers to keep the Trump administration from sending in the National Guard.
And also to keep Democrats in power in those respective areas. It's like, look, we got the crime down. So, if in any movie that you've ever watched about politics, it's like the mayor wants to get reelected. Yeah. Let's just not classify that as what it is.
But that's a double-edged sword, because the Republicans are going to use that, saying, look at how successful Donald Trump is. Look at how successful Donald Trump's policies have been. And so I think that I'm not sure which is a more compelling narrative, because again, if Republicans are saying, look, our immigration policies have caused crime to go down, et cetera, et cetera. People that aren't from these cities are going to say, well, okay, well, that's pretty good. Maybe I should vote for the Republicans again. And then the individual cities, obviously the politicians from the individual cities will say, well, see, my policies are actually good and they're reducing crime. So maybe there will be more, maybe Democrats that are in positions of power now will get reelected, but it still will credit the Donald Trump administration.
I would just say that I haven't seen them ever reference his job being bad as it relates to murders and or crime. I don't think that that's like a winning argument for them. So even if you gave this to him, you still have a whole pile of other issues that you could hammer him on. So the murder rate being good serves your ends more than it hurts him. That's how I look at it.
Do you think that the Donald Trump administration is going to be able to capitalize on this kind of information and say, look, our policies are helping?
Yeah, they might try. They shouldn't, because it's just not. From a political science point of view, it's not actually advantageous to applaud blue cities for lowering crime. I mean, you could attribute it to like some directives from the federal government, but that just doesn't seem wise. The Trump administration right now is actually incentivized to accurately portray the situation in the cities, which is they are out of control. They are crying out for federal intervention. I haven't seen, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I actually haven't seen any federal agencies chest beating over this data, nor should they. They should continue doing what Trump had talked about previously, which is that some of this data is skewed. But what's not being talked about, what should be talked about, is that they're also misrepresenting racial crime data. And it creates a lot of problems. It makes it more difficult to draw up policy, to accurately give the people a picture of what's going on. Because in most of these cities, it's mostly black people committing the violent crime. But now you're seeing like the black crime rate drop down, and then you just dig a little bit. You just spot check different cases, and it'll be like literally a Guatemalan, literally a black guy, and they'll be like, it was a white guy.
Well, I'm aware of the fact that there are times where they'll go ahead and misrepresent the race of the person committing crime, and particularly when it comes to Hispanic or Latino people, they'll call them white.
It's never the other. It's never like a white person getting labeled as black or Hispanic. It's just because, again, there's different incentive structures that would kick in if you accurately sort of laid out to the American people like who's committing the violent crime. I mean, we saw it after Irina's Rutska. Like everyone for like 2 weeks was very comfortable going out and saying black crime's a huge problem. Just black culture in general is making our cities unlivable. But then like 2 weeks later, granted Charlie happened, so that took precedent. Mm-hmm. But then after that, like people stopped talking about it. And it was like, okay, well, we're never going to actually like, our cities are never going to be livable until we're just very direct and confront like black crime as a reality.
It reminds me of in 2020 when it was the elections and the ballot issues and proving it. And I remember thinking to myself, if I was a leftist mailman, for example, and I obtained a bag of what I knew to be votes, and I didn't want Trump to win because I thought he was a fascist dictator that was going to destroy the country and democracy would die forever, wouldn't nobody have to tell me that I should just throw these ballots in the garbage and pretend that I lost them if I got them from let's say a nursing home in a red area that I knew that they were likely to be Trump ballots? Wouldn't I just know to throw them out because I'm helping to save the dictator? I would wager that it's highly likely that these types of things as well could be altered in that same way, where you don't necessarily need to get a directive from the top-down Democratic Party to say, hey, fudge these numbers, but they're like, hey, man, the captain of the police squad says, don't put it in as a black guy, put it in as a white guy. And it just kind of trickles through as like an unspoken understanding where this benefits us. And what it also does is it makes Trump going and knocking down doors and getting people out not seem like it's justified because it's really not that violent.
Yeah, well, police unions are one of the last institutions in America that are actually conservative still. Like if you go and, again, spot check different cities, look at their police unions, they're typically endorsing Republicans. They're typically made up. I mean, police officers, we all know police officers. Like the majority of police officers are like conservative, patriots. It's the police chiefs, which are appointed by the mayor, or it's sheriffs, which are elected by the county. Typically, these counties are blue. So unfortunately, they're taking directives from those guys. And then also a lot of the desk jobs in police departments are not staffed by like patriots that are on the patrol. They're staffed by just whoever they can find a lot of times. No offense to, there's some great people I know that work on police desks, but they're pulled out of like the general population. They're not like police, like hardened police officers. So those are the people that probably have more of a liberal leaning and would be incentivized to hide the ball a little bit on what's going on in these cities. So,
yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised if that type of thing was happening
all
in all
unspoken.
types of statistical reporting and all types of everything. And even in newsrooms or whatever, if you were a leftist reporter that was for a, let's call it a middle of the line, outlet or something, I don't know how many journalists are there with you on the scene to get whatever the story is. Could you alter it a little bit to serve your own ends? Could that happen? Because if you frame Trump as the second coming of the worst dictator in the history of time, and the democracy is going to die in darkness, and we're going to lose democracy forever, and this guy represents an existential threat to humanity as a whole, it's like the collective modification that would happen all the way up and down the chain without any directive, I think would be everywhere.
Yeah, it's all incentive structures. Like, I mean, you're exactly right. It's not, a top down. It's not Nancy Pelosi giving out talking points to like the Jacksonville County Sheriff's Department. It's just like, it's all unspoken. It's all like, this kind of looks a little bad. Maybe we can clean things up a little bit. And they can justify it to themselves. They can come up with like reasons for why they're doing these things, even if it's explicitly racial justice or something, which you do see from time to time. But yeah, Bobby, it's
more
like,
than that
so
from time
true.
to time. I think that's the motivating factor for
for
most of the left generally.
It helps them moralize these things, and so it's not like a top-down directive. Even in the media, it's not the New York Times. I mean, they do have a relationship, obviously, with the Democrat Party. In many ways, they're like the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party. But none of these things require like directives. A lot of these things are just, these people are instinctually liberals, they're instinctually left-wing, and they view themselves as part of a revolution, and so they're going to behave in accordance with that.
Yeah, that's something that we talked about, is the lack of necessity for, liberals or progressives to act like progressives, right? Like whereas there are times where I think there's a script that comes out for specific issues. There are things that they want like the thought leaders to say. Overall, you don't have to instruct a progressive on what to say on each individual issue, because it's like you don't have to tell a Catholic how to be a Catholic. The liberal progressive really does treat their politics as if it's a religion, and because of that, you don't have to tell them, oh, this is what you're supposed to think about this, or this is what you're supposed to think about this. You'll get some variation in the way that they apply the doctrine, but if you're a liberal progressive that went to college, that kind of was indoctrinated with that thought process, it doesn't take someone telling you what to think, or this issue you have this opinion, this issue you have this opinion, because the doctrine is part of the way that you see the world. When people would talk about critical race theory, that phrase has kind of fallen out of favor, and people say, oh, woke is dead, so we don't have to worry about it. It's totally wrong, because it's not about just one policy or just some people. It's a way to view the world, and it's taught from great. Nowadays, there are people that are out in society that were taught from grade school all the way through college, and they got into jobs in human resources, and so that's just the way they see the world. It doesn't have to be instructed to anymore. This is, to them, that's how reality is, and that's part of why there's such a divide between the right and the left. People on the right didn't internalize those ideas, or were insulated from them somehow, whether it be through family, through their church, through whatever it may be. And people on the left, they really do see the world through this critical lens, where you have to try your best to make sure that you are trying to implement justice for the marginalized communities in every aspect and every chance you get.
Well, you need to look like that's what you're trying to do, more so than you actually the more than you actually have to be effective at doing it. You need people to think that you're empathetic to them. Which is, what actually happens doesn't matter. You just want them to think that you are like that.
Which is, it kind of adds to my point about it being a religion. Like, there are plenty of Christians out there, and plenty of people that would say that they're religious, that they're in church on Sunday, and then on Tuesday they're out with the boys chasing skirts around town, or while their wife's home with the kids or whatever. There are plenty of people that are doing things just to to keep up appearances. So
yeah, like a lot of leftism, I think, is very performative. Where if you come to them and you say, well, even though I want to protect this group of people and protect this class of people. When you put this policy in that you guys think helps this group of people, here's what actually happens. It ends up way worse than it is. Oh, I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
And by me disagreeing with all the people that look empathetic by doing the wrong thing, well, that puts me out of it. So I don't care about what actually happens. I care about how it looks like I think, or how empathetic I appear, and then they get stuck in that trap where they hate you, and they could just say, well, he's not empathetic, that's not me.
I mean, look, if the left really cared about people that were downtrodden and stuff, they'd all be like, progressives. I mean, they'd all be capitalists that want to have strong property rights, because the engine that takes people out of poverty, that has shown over and over again, is free markets and property rights. Those things, if you give a population property rights and free markets, then you're going to see a massive increase in wealth, and you're going to see a huge amount of the population be pulled out of poverty. And then, I mean, in the United States, the only people that are in actual poverty are people that can't function in our society due to, mental illness or sometimes drug addiction. But it's a very, very, very small amount of people in the U.S. that are chronically poor. And whether you like him or not, Ben Shapiro's made this point a lot. There's really only 3 things you got to do. Don't have a kid outside of marriage, keep a job for 10 years, and get married. And you'll probably not be in poverty. You won't be chronically in poverty. You may, people hit on hard times, people lose jobs and stuff. But if you do those things, you can get out of poverty and have a pretty good life in the United States.
Well, irrespective of the cause of the poverty, generally speaking, the free market principles and not the just give a handout is ultimately what will pull them out of it. It's like by putting them on the dole, by putting them on food stamps in perpetuity for life and not encouraging them to get a job or whatever, you're creating their environment for them to be trapped in that, as opposed to get them out of it. So we both want to help the poor person. This one will just actually create lasting change. This will actually trap them, but you'll get all the woke points in the now. Yeah. And that's why they don't care about what happens. They just care about how it looks right now.
The problem is, like, with all of this, is we're only talking about like what white liberals are advocating for. And you see this problem all around the world. This is actually like a good example is Malaysia, where you have the Malay population, which underperforms, the Chinese population overperforms. And the Malay population in Malaysia sets up these massive incentive networks, like from the government, through welfare, through food stamps to a degree, these sorts of things, because like you can never expect a group that underperforms for whatever reason you want to prescribe, like why they underperform. You can never expect them to not advocate for government subsidies. They're going to want to subsidize their existence to a degree. So the United States, like, part of the issue is, yes, white liberals advocate for these policies because they just perceive like it's going to help them, even though it's misguided and wrong. But like Black Americans, Hispanic Americans to a degree will advocate for these policies purely so they feel like they can keep up with the rest of the country. And so it's really, this is not a uniquely American problem. This occurs all over the world, is when there is a population in a country that underperforms, naturally they're going to advocate for policies that benefit that population, no matter their size. Like you see it in South Africa, where like Black Africans make up like 80% of the country, and they have completely reoriented the government to provide them with subsidies, provide them with welfare networks, because again, they're just trying to, in their eyes, keep up. And so obviously if they're underperforming, they're just going to advocate for policies that provide them with subsidies, provide them with welfare benefits and that sort of thing.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.